You think you're building wealth, you're not. You're building a tax bomb with a 30-year fuse, and the government is holding the detonator. Right now, in 2026, your 401k isn't a retirement account, it's a contract you signed in invisible ink, and the terms are changing while you sleep. The average American will lose between $300,000 and $700,000 to avoidable mistakes inside their 401k over their lifetime. Not market crashes, not bad luck, mistakes, mathematical, predictable, entirely preventable mistakes that the financial industry profits from every single day. And the worst part? You were never taught the rules of the game. You were handed a pamphlet during new hire orientation, told to pick some funds, and sent on your way. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. The 401k system in 2026 is no longer the simple tax-deferred vehicle your parents used. It's a labyrinth of new IRS mandates, hidden fee structures, and psychological traps designed to transfer your wealth to someone else. And if you don't understand the 7 mistakes I'm about to reveal, you're not investing, you're donating. Let's start with the mistake that's about to blindside high earners in 2026 like a freight train in the dark. If you make over $145,000 a year, the IRS just changed the rules on you, and almost nobody is talking about it. Under the new Secure 2.0 provisions that went into full effect this year, all catch-up contributions for high earners must now go into a Roth 401k. Not traditional, Roth. Let that sink in. You're in your peak earning years, your marginal tax rate is probably 32% or higher, and the government just mandated that you pay taxes now on money you're trying to save for later. This is the high earner mandate, and it's a tax trap disguised as retirement policy. Here's why this is lethal. The entire original benefit of a 401k was tax deferral. You defer taxes when your rate is high and pay them when your rate is low in retirement. But now, if you're a high earner trying to maximize contributions through catch-ups, you're forced to pay the highest possible tax rate today, with no choice in the matter. The math is brutal. If you're in the 35% bracket and you're forced to Roth $7,500 in catch-up contributions, you're paying $2,625 in taxes this year that you could have deferred. Multiply that over a decade. Add compound interest on the money you didn't get to invest because it went to taxes. You're looking at a 6-figure wealth transfer from your future to the Treasury today. And here's the kicker. Most payroll systems aren't even set up correctly for this yet. I've seen cases where high earners are having their catch-up contributions rejected entirely because their employer's plan isn't compliant. You think you're maxing out. You're not. You're leaving money on the table because the system changed and nobody told you. Now let's talk about the silent killer sitting in 80% of all 401k accounts right now. Target date funds. You were told these were the safe choice, the smart choice, the set it and forget it choice. You were lied to. Target date funds are the financial equivalent of cruise control on a car with bad brakes heading toward a cliff. Here's how the sabotage works. These funds automatically adjust your asset allocation as you age, shifting from stocks to bonds as you approach retirement. Sounds reasonable, right? Wrong. Because in 2026, we're living in an inverted world where bonds are no longer safe, and the fees inside these funds are bleeding you dry. The average target date fund charges between 0.5 and 1.2% in annual fees. That sounds small. It's not. Over 30 years, a 1% fee will consume approximately 28% of your final account value. Not 1%, 28%. You're handing over more than a quarter of your life's work to fund managers who are making allocation decisions based on your age, not your actual financial situation, risk tolerance, or market conditions. But here's the deeper problem. These funds are buying bonds at historically low yields and high interest rate risk. If rates stay elevated or move higher, bond values will continue to get crushed. And you, the investor who thought you were being conservative, are actually taking on massive duration risk that you don't even understand. Meanwhile, the fund company is collecting fees on both the target date fund wrapper and the underlying funds inside it. It's a fee-on-fee structure and you're paying both layers. The alternative? Build your own allocation using low-cost index funds, a total market stock fund, and a bond fund. 2 funds. Total cost, 0.03% to 0.1% annually. You just saved yourself a fortune and gained control over your actual risk exposure. But nobody tells you this because target date funds are profitable for the industry and easy for HR departments to recommend without liability. Mistake number 3 is the one that destroys more wealth than almost anything else, and it happens the moment you change jobs. It's called the vesting handcuffs. And right now, millions of people are walking away from tens of thousands of dollars because they don't understand the math of regret. Here's how it works. Your employer contributes to your 401k, but those contributions don't become yours immediately. They vest over time, usually on a schedule of 3 to 6 years. If you leave before you're fully vested, you forfeit everything that hasn't vested yet. And in 2006, with job mobility at an all-time high, and younger workers changing jobs every 2 to 3 years, this is a catastrophic wealth leak. Let me give you the numbers. Say your employer matches 6% of your $100,000 salary. That's $6,000 a year. Over 4 years, that's $24,000 in employer contributions. If you leave in year 3 on a 4-year vesting schedule, you might only be 50% vested. You just forfeited $12,000. But it's worse than that because of compound interest. That $12,000 invested over the next 30 years at 8% annual returns would have grown to over $120,000. You didn't lose $12,000. You lost $120,000 because you left 6 months too early. The psychological trap here is brutal. You get a better job offer, more money, better title. You're excited, you take it, and in your excitement, you never check your vesting schedule. Or you do check, and you think it's only a few $1,000s. I'll make it up with the new salary. You won't, because compound interest doesn't care about your new salary. It cares about time, and the time you lost is gone forever. The move here? Before you quit, check your vesting schedule. If you're close to a vesting cliff, delay your start date at the new company if you can. Negotiate a signing bonus to cover what you're leaving behind. Or at minimum, calculate the real cost so you're making the decision with full information, not gut instinct. Let's go deeper into something that separates the top 1% of investors from everyone else. Asset location, not allocation. Location, most people have never even heard this term, but it's the difference between retiring wealthy and retiring comfortable. Asset location is the strategy of deliberately placing specific types of investments in specific types of accounts to minimize taxes. And if you're doing this wrong, in 2026, you're committing asset location suicide. Here's the framework. Different investments are taxed differently. Stocks that you hold long-term generate capital gains, taxed at preferential rates. Bonds generate ordinary income, taxed at your full marginal rate. REITs and dividend stocks throw off cash that's taxed annually. So the question is, where should each of these live? The answer is mathematically precise. Your tax-inefficient assets, bonds, REITs, actively managed funds with high turnover should live in your tax-deferred accounts like your traditional 401k. Why? Because these accounts shelter the income from annual taxation. Your tax-efficient assets, total market index funds, stocks you buy and hold, should live in your taxable brokerage account or Roth IRA. Why? Because you want those long-term capital gains taxed at the preferential 15% or 20% rate. And you want the Roth to grow tax-free forever. But here's what most people do. They put everything in their 401k, including growth stocks and index funds, because it's easy and automatic. Then they hold bonds and dividend stocks in their taxable account, because their advisor told them they need balance. This is backwards. This is tax drag, and over a lifetime, this mistake will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let me show you the math. Say you have $500,000 in bonds generating 4% yield. If that's in a taxable account and you're in the 32% bracket, you're paying $6,400 a year in taxes on that income. Over 20 years, that's $128,000 in unnecessary taxes, not even accounting for the lost compounding. But if those bonds were in your 401k and your growth stocks were in your Roth, you'd pay 0 taxes annually on the bond income and 0 taxes ever on the stock growth. This is the game the wealthy play. They obsess over asset location because they understand that it's not just about what you earn, it's about what you keep after taxes. In 2026, with tax rates likely rising in 2027, when the TCJA sunsets, this strategy is more critical than ever. Now let's talk about the 3 master-level opportunities that almost nobody is using, starting with one that's so specific, so time-limited, and so powerful that it feels like a legal cheat code. It's called the super catch-up window, and it only applies if you're between the ages of 60 and 63. If you're in this age range right now, you need to listen like your retirement depends on it, because it does. Under Secure 2.0, individuals aged 60 to 63 can make catch-up contributions of $11,250 to their 401k in 2026, compared to the standard $7,500 for those 50 and older. That's an extra $3,750 per year, but only for 4 years of your life. This is a legislative gift, a narrow window where the government is essentially saying you're close to retirement, you're behind, here's a chance to catch up. And most people are sleeping on it. Here's why this matters. Those 4 years, ages 60 to 63, are often your peak earning years. Kids are out of the house. Mortgage is almost paid off. You have more discretionary income than you've ever had. And now you have the legal ability to supercharge your retirement savings at exactly the moment you can afford to. Let's do the math. If you max out the super catch-up for all 4 years, that's an additional $15,000 in contributions beyond what you could have done otherwise. Invested at 8% annual returns for just the 7 years until you're 70, that $15,000 turns into roughly $26,000. But here's the real power. If you're doing this in a Roth 401k, that $26,000 grows tax-free forever. And if you're strategic about it, you're making these contributions in years when you might be in a lower tax bracket due to deductions or income fluctuations. This is precision wealth building. This is the difference between a comfortable retirement and a lavish one, but the window is narrow. 4 years. If you're 59 right now, you need to plan for this. If you're 64, you already missed it. Opportunity number 2 is one of the most mind-bending provisions of a Secure 2.0, and it's aimed directly at the younger generation drowning in student loan debt. It's called the Student Loan Matchmaking Strategy, and yes, it's as crazy as it sounds. Starting in 2026, employers can make matching contributions to your 401k based on your student loan payments. Read that again. You don't contribute a single dollar to your 401k. You just make your required student loan payments, and your employer puts money into your retirement account as if you had contributed. This is free money for doing something you were already legally obligated to do. Here's how it works. Say your employer matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary. Normally, you'd have to contribute 6% of your pay to get the full match. But under this new rule, if you're paying 6% of your salary towards student loans, your employer can treat that as if you made a 401k contribution and give you the match anyway. Let's put numbers on it. You make $60,000, 6% is $3,600. You're already paying $3,600 a year towards student loans. Your employer now contributes $1,800 to your 401k, even though you contributed zero. Over 10 years, that's $18,000 in free contributions. Over 30 years at 8% growth, that initial $18,000 becomes over $181,000. You built a 6-figure retirement account without sacrificing a single dollar of your paycheck. But here's the catch. Your employer has to offer this. It's optional. So if you're young, if you have student loans, you need to ask HR if your company has adopted this provision. If they haven't, you need to advocate for it. Bring it to their attention. This is the kind of benefit that costs the company relatively little, but changes lives. And if you're an employer reading this, implementing this benefit will make you a magnet for young talent in 2026. Opportunity number 3 is the big one, the macro play. The reason 2026 is the most important tax year of the decade. It's called the TCJA sunset play. And if you don't act this year, you're going to watch tax rates spike in 2027 and realize you missed the last great sale on taxes. Here's the situation. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 lowered income tax rates across the board, but those cuts were temporary. They expire at the end of 2025, which means 2026 is the last full year under the current lower rates. Starting in 2027, unless Congress acts, we revert to the old higher brackets. The 22% bracket becomes 25%. The 24% bracket becomes 28%. The 32% bracket becomes 35%. And the top rate goes from 37% back to 39.6%. This is a global sale on taxes, and the clearance rack closes in 12 months. So what do? You accelerate income into 2026 if you can. You do Roth conversions now while rates are low, moving money from your traditional IRA or 401k into a Roth and paying taxes at today's discounted rates instead of tomorrow's premium rates. Here's the math. Say you convert $50,000 from a traditional IRA to a Roth in 2006 while you're in the 24% bracket. You pay $12,000 in taxes. If you wait until 2027 and you're in the 28% bracket, you pay $14,000. You just saved $2,000, and that $50,000 now grows tax-free. But the real leverage comes if you're strategic. You convert in a year when your income is temporarily lower. Maybe you're between jobs, maybe you took a sabbatical, maybe you had a business loss. You fill up the lower brackets with conversions. You pay 10%, 12%, 22% on money that would have been taxed at 32% or 35% in retirement. This is tax arbitrage. This is what the wealthy do, and 2026 is the last easy year to do it before rates reset. Now let's talk about the double-edged sword, the provision that sounds like a gift but can become a curse if you're not careful. It's the emergency access loophole under Secure 2.0, and it allows you to withdraw up to $1,000 per year from your 401k for emergency expenses without the 10% early withdrawal penalty. On the surface, this sounds compassionate. Life happens, emergencies arise. Now you have access to your own money without getting destroyed by penalties. But here's the trap. The moment you make it easier to access retirement money, you make it psychologically easier to justify rating your future. That $1,000 emergency withdrawal doesn't feel like much. It's just $1,000. But if you do it every year for 20 years, that's $20,000 you pulled out. And that $20,000 left invested at 8% over those 20 years would have grown to $93,000. You didn't take out $20,000. You took out $93,000 from your retirement. Plus, you still owe taxes on that withdrawal. It's penalty-free, not tax-free. So you pull out $1,000, you pay taxes, you net maybe $700. And you just cost your future self six figures. The psychology here is insidious. It's the same reason people with home equity lines of credit end up deeper in debt. Access creates justification. Justification creates behavior. Behavior creates regret. So here's the rule. The emergency access provision is for true emergencies only. Medical crisis, sudden job loss, unreimbursed disaster, not for Christmas gifts, not for vacations, not for a new TV. If you treat your 401k like a piggy bank, you'll retire broke. Let me pull all of this together because we've covered 7 mistakes, 3 opportunities, and 1 dangerous loophole. And if your head is spinning, good. That means you're starting to see the matrix. The 401k system in 2026 is not what it was. It's more complex, more regulated, and more full of traps than ever before. But it's also more full of opportunity if you know where to look. The high earner mandate forces you into Roth contributions, but if you're strategic, you can use that to build a tax-free empire. Target date funds are bleeding you dry, but low-cost index funds give you control and save you a fortune. The vesting handcuffs can cost you 6 figures, but checking your schedule before you quit can save it all. Asset location is the invisible differentiator between wealth and mediocrity, but most people have never even heard the term. The super catch-up window is a 4-year gift for those aged 60 to 63, but you have to know it exists to use it. The student loan matchmaking rule is free money for the young generation, but only if your employer offers it. The TCJA sunset makes 2026 the last cheap tax year of the decade, but only if you act now with Roth conversions. And the emergency access loophole is a safety net, but it's also a trapdoor if you're not disciplined. Here's what I want you to understand. The financial system is not designed to make you wealthy. It's designed to make you compliant. Compliant savers who check the box, pick the default option, and never ask questions. The default option is almost always the most profitable option for someone else. The target date fund is profitable for the fund company. The early job change is profitable for the employer, who keeps your unvested match. The lack of asset location strategy is profitable for the IRS. You are swimming in a river designed to carry you towards someone else's prosperity, and the only way to build real wealth is to swim against the current. That requires knowledge. It requires strategy. It requires you to ask uncomfortable questions and challenge default assumptions. It requires you to treat your 401k not as a set it and forget it checkbox, but as a sophisticated tax and investment vehicle that demands your attention. So here's your call to action. Pull up your 401k statement right now. Look at your funds. Are you in target date funds? Calculate the fees. Are you paying over 0.5%? You're being robbed. Check your vesting schedule. If you're thinking about changing jobs, are you walking away from money? Look at your asset location. Are your bonds in taxable and your stocks in tax deferred? You're doing it backwards. If you're between 60 and 63, are you maxing out the super catch-up? If not, you're leaving free wealth on the table. If you have student loans, does your employer offer the match program? If not, ask them why. And if you're a high earner, do you understand the Roth mandate and how it affects your 2026 taxes? If the answer to any of these questions is I don't know, then you've got work to do. But the good news is that you're here. You watched this. You now know what the top 1% knows. You've been given the red pill. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. And your retirement is not entertainment. It's the difference between freedom and dependence, between dignity and desperation. The 401k is not a magic wealth building machine. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can build or it can destroy, depending on how you use it. In 2026, the rules have changed, the traps are deeper, but the opportunities are bigger than ever. You just have to be smart enough, disciplined enough, and brave enough to seize them.